first and foremost, let me thank you all for joining us here this evening. Of course, I am Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, Super District 7 Commissioner here in DeKalb County, Georgia. And Allison, if you would, let's go ahead and bring up the presentation itself. I thank you all for joining us. Personally, I come from a marketing and advertising background, and it's just very important to me that we continue to find innovative ways to help people enhance their lives. As we are all aware, as we're facing a global pandemic, the marketplace is shifting drastically. As a result of that, brick and mortar is changing, and there are extreme opportunities out there for individuals in the online marketplace. So I have gathered a wonderful group of people here to assist you. And we have a lot of ground to cover. Hopefully by the time we're done here, you will feel that you have been to the Harvard of online marketing within a very short period of time. So without delay, I'm going to introduce all of the individuals that will be a part of the panel. And of course, tonight I am your commissioner always, but my background is marketing. I have been an entrepreneur for probably well over 20 years. I am the owner of Lorraine Fine Frames and Hardware, recently opened here in the city of Stonecrest, the Crab Kingdom. And I also have my own marketing and advertising firm. I'd spent over a decade with Creative Loafing newspaper and print media, as well as film and television, and also a former professor at the Art Institute of Atlanta, where I taught marketing, branding, and ideation. Also this evening, we have with us Mr. Fariz Morani, and Fariz is the CEO of Access Loans and Financing. He is a DeKalb County-based mortgage lender that founded his company in 2011 with the goal of helping individuals in communities own their dream homes. He has helped hundreds of families with financing and has assisted them in transitioning from apartments into home ownership. He is not only passionate about helping families with new homes, but also has knowledge of assisting families with lowering their monthly mortgages. And he is an entrepreneur of many shades as well. Although his bio does not say that, he owns and operates several online businesses. So thank you so much for joining us this evening, Mr. Morani. Next, we have Mr. George Shealy. And George, he has over 15 years as a visionary with online marketing, as well as television and radio. He is SIMPO certified in SEM and SEO marketing, and he is an expert social media marketer and website developer. Mr. Shealy is the owner of Go Media Marketing, whose tagline is, "We make it our business to help you grow your business," where he helps companies increase their revenue through various advertising mediums. And some of the brands that he has assisted in major Atlanta-based companies includes Debt Stoppers, 411 Payne, Georgia Now, Hurt 911, Hammond Services, as well as Gerald Griggs Law Firm. George, you and I have a very robust history of working together, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be a part of this panel. And last but not least, we have Mr. Dannon Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn is an artist by nature, but he is also a warrior whose company, Random Shield, protect businesses from hackers. He is a native of Atlanta, and he started working with computer security and IT systems for small businesses and Fortune 500 companies over 20 years ago. He is a passionate entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship has always been on the forefront of his mind. So in the early 2000s, after successfully assisting with the startup of several companies, he launched his own. So he put those 20 years of IT security industry experience together and founded his own organization known as Ransom Shield. And thank you, Mr. Vaughn, so much for joining us here this evening. It goes without saying that we have an incredible panel of experts, and we are going to walk you through everything that you will need to do in order to be successful and or find your way in the online and digital space. So we're not going to delay. Allison, if you will begin the presentation, Mr. Morani, we are going to just hop right into it. The first thing that I thought was really important, and the first bullet that you have, is understanding the difference between retail and online. I sort of pulled some figures earlier that looked at the shift from retail and online, but let's talk about what the characteristics of each are. So at this point, I'm going to defer to you, and let's cover the bullets so we also discuss the benefits as well as the expenses, fixed versus variable cost, and how to determine startup capital when deciding to move into the online space.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Commissioner Johnson. Really appreciate you having me on this panel. I do have an extensive background. I do own a brick and mortar retail store, as well as I'm an e-commerce seller, an online seller. So there are some of the major differences between selling online and versus having a retail brick and mortar. One of the major things is you have fixed expenses, like you have a rent that's due with the retail. You have payroll expenses. You have utility expenses. So there is maintenance of a retail store itself in the shopping center, or it could be in a large mall. And with the online business, you pretty much are you don't have those expenses available to you, and you are more managing your online store from anywhere. You could be working from home, you could be working from your basement, you could be working from your bedroom. So I started my online business in 2012. And I actually own a store on eBay, which is one of the e-commerce platforms which I sell products at. And when I started my journey online, I've learned a lot through a lot of ways of reading articles and kind of understanding how to sell and how to be a successful online seller. Um, so after doing the business online versus the retail, I got an understanding and saw the differences, that the benefits that it brings. So retail, you're opening your doors, you have to spend a lot of money on marketing, and that's a very big piece of expense because you're trying to bring people to your door. And versus online, any platforms that you're selling at, those platforms are going to be spending that money right behind you to bring the traffic to your door, so you don't have to spend that money. And that's one of those major expenses. So marketing was a big piece of expense that you have when you have a brick and mortar, versus when you're selling on e-commerce, the expenses are very minimal to marketing. There's a large benefits, especially in these pandemic times, as we've seen. This should be a big eye opener for people that are not selling products online or doing anything online. Could be a service or it could be products, that they need to look into it, because when this pandemic hit and when everything shut down, online sales were going 20 times more than they normally would have. So they never saw the difference, or they never saw the decline in their sales. People were home more often, and they have more time to shop online. So I think this should be a biggest eye opener for people that are going through this pandemic and looking at it. So we've covered the benefits, we've covered expenses, we talked about the fixed and the variable cost. The fixed cost between the retail businesses are always going to be there, versus online, you don't have those costs, which, you have more chances to be more successful when you don't have expenses and have fixed costs.
And let me sort of, interrupt here, because being a former professor, I like to ensure that everyone is with us in terms of any definitions. And I just wanted to stop really quick and define what a definition of a fixed cost is. For those of you who are entering business, your fixed costs are going to be costs that will not change. Your rent, for the most part, or your mortgage, depending on whether you are purchasing space or you're leasing space, that is considered a fixed cost. I'd also like to say for those who, because I'm on both sides of the aisle. I operate online stores, and of course I have brick and mortar. Um, for the most part, when it comes to signing leases, there is usually going to be an acceleration clause of a certain percent on an annual basis, but it's still going to be considered a fixed cost. Things like as well your basic phone service, your internet service, the cost of services that are produced in goods. Those are generally going to be your fixed cost, while your variable cost may be your wages, because one week you may employ or retain a different amount of people than you would a subsequent week, as well as utility consumption, because that tends to change on a weekly basis. Now, as we're starting to sort of move along as well, when we talk about online, one of the biggest benefits, and Mr. Marani, you focused on this, is online sales gives you a global platform in terms of your consumer base. And I know personally, sometimes I'm absolutely amazed as we are shipping product to see where it goes. Because independent of selling online, I do not believe that I would have global clients. And that's one thing that is often far more difficult if you were in a sedentary space. And I did want to also read a little note as you talked about, after COVID-19 and as we face a global pandemic. And this was taken from CNN. They say some argue that e-commerce and the Amazon effect have doomed the in-store retail industry to a slow death. Others argue there is still a lot of retailing to be done in storefront shops, malls, as well as grocery and big box stores. The question is, who is right? The current narrative is that online sales are growing at a far higher rate than brick and mortar sales and causing a steep drop in businesses at physical store locations. Now, with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to you so that you can continue with the presentation, and I'll just sort of pop in as necessary, because I also pulled some data in terms of trending products, because one of the greatest opportunities for online sales is trending products.
Thank you, Commissioner, for adding that into it. So yes, and for the most part, right here, the biggest benefit, you need not very little startup capital for online business, versus when you're starting a brick and mortar, you're looking at renovation, remodeling, you're looking at fixing the store, spending the money all over trying to design the store. So very little cost is needed. So I mean, as we've seen in the slide, we've seen a lot of differences, and we've seen the benefits and that the online business can bring to us versus the retail business. Allison, if you can take us to the next slide, please. Thank you. So it's very interesting with the stats, this year that we're looking at, and especially the last quarter itself. Online business has, been there for over 2 decades and 3 decades, but mostly sellers that were on board selling products online have seen this stats incline on a year-to-year basis. So when Amazon started back in 1996, they started as a bookstore online, and they sold their first book, and there were a lot of people that were not knowledgeable and not being, did not have the information or did not feel comfortable selling products online. They were scared, they were hesitant. But the trend of where we're seeing where the online sales are trending at this point, just, overall in 2017, the sales were almost $453 billion. I mean, we're talking about $1 billion, not $1 million. In 2018, the sales jumped to $523 billion. That's a growth right there of almost 18% right there. In 2019, the sales is almost $601 billion. I mean, the stats don't lie. The
Yeah.
numbers don't lie. They keep inclining almost average of 20% year to year, year to year. And we've seen those online growth. We've seen those sales are growing. They are projecting back by 2024, it's going to be, $1 trillion is where online sales are going to be. So as you can see that the consumers are more getting prone and they're more getting technology savvy. You've seen the millennials and you've seen people that were not using iPhones anymore or downloading apps anymore have started download those apps. They've started to learn how to shop online, and people are changing their behaviors of shopping online. So the behavior change and the convenience part is why we're seeing the stats we're seeing. And we need to follow these stats to understand the market is getting into a direction, and we need to walk towards together in that direction to be part of that success. Success rate online is almost going to be 90% due to the fixed costs that the commissioner explained a few minutes ago that are not there when you have an online business. Versus if you had a retail business, the chances are less for you to survive and to be successful because of those fixed costs associated. um, the business to consumer sales. It's what the online business, major businesses, where consumers are ordering the products directly from the same businesses that once upon a time they used to go to the shopping center. They're saving time, they're saving gas, and the savings eventually of the time of just going to the mall and shopping on and just getting the same products at the door. It's been amazing. So I think overall in this slide, if there's something you need to take away from it, is to focus and keep concentrating on the stats and see the success rate and see where the sales are trending. Do you need to be part of that success?
And let me also add to that point, many cite easy access as well as convenience as being the number one reason why they choose to purchase online. It gives you the ability to compare multiple products. It would be near impossible to get in your car and drive to multiple locations to compare products as you are able to do from the convenience of your home. And it makes a substantial difference. Also, you see that giants like Amazon and many of the online retailers are offering prime delivery services. And, I won't go into that, but that has created an entirely different dynamic and window of opportunity because there is a tremendous need for small package handlers and warehouses that can accommodate space. I know that Amazon, in terms of just the ability to get out product, they have programs that allow drivers to literally become a subcontractor. And they provide vehicles because the online space is such and the demand is so great for product to be delivered quickly that has literally changed the game. So, as we move forward, I think we're ready now for the next slide, Allison. And I think we can kind of lead in very easy as it relates to Mr. Marani, the different types of products. When we talk about a commodity versus a niche product, and how to determine what works best for you, depending on the type of product that you have. I'd love for us to talk about that. And I'm very excited to talk about trending products because there may be someone that's a part of this call today who would be inspired by the things that we see out there trending because it has been greatly influenced by COVID-19 and our global pandemic.
So moving forward to this slide, one of the key elements here in this slide is, when you think, when somebody says online or they use the word e-commerce, the first thing comes to you in your mind is, I'm selling something. I've got to go buy a good, I've got to go buy a product, and I've got to sell that product. And, e-commerce itself, selling, it's not just related to products, it's also related to services. I like to bring up a good example of a service-based business that's e-commerce. And I'm sure everyone here has used this, and that website is Zillow. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes to Zillow to see their home values, and to go see their home sales and see what's available in the market, either to rent or purchase. Zillow has taken the platform for e-commerce to the next level. They came in the market years ago. They offered the services for free. They gained the attraction from the consumers. They made the consumers get used to the website, and now they're charging for services. It's an amazing way of how they've converted that into a business model. So
And I have to sort of interject there because I get excited because in many instances, even with Facebook, initially advertising was free. But over time, as you are able to build your client base and your audience, it allows you to step out and begin charging for services that may have been initially free. So I've seen a lot of companies that have taken the approach that you just explained, particularly on the service side of the model for online. So thanks for sharing that and making that point.
you're welcome. There are websites like loopnet.com, costar.com, and there are many other websites that are offering these services. And the point that I'm trying to bring here is not only you can earn a living out of selling products, you can create a service based website. You can create a service based online service, and through which also you can be successful being on e-commerce. There are two kind of main categories of products. There's a commodity product and there's a niche product. When you talk about commodity products, everyone has a passion or everyone is into something, right? So first of all, you need to kind of go back to yourself on the drawing board and kind of talk to yourself and see what do you like the most. Give you a good example. I have a friend who loves perfumes, and they're just big passionate about perfumes and have a lot of knowledge about colognes. And what they came up with the plan is, I love this product. This is all I've loved all my life, and this is what I like to get into. They opened an e-commerce store online and have sold thousands and thousands of perfumes and gained thousands of feedbacks and converted into $1 million business. Their sales are about $80,000 to $100,000 a month online, just selling colognes and selling perfumes. And it started with just one sale a day. So you just got to find the product that you love and you have to run with the product. But again, if you love what you do and if you pick the right product, success is going to follow automatically. So you just, kind of have to look at it. Another thing is sometimes you are looking at, like the commissioner was pointing out about the trending products. And, as we all have noticed and we all have seen during the pandemic, how businesses have taken advantage of what's needed in this economy. It's what's needed in this market. And there's a supply and there's a demand. What they've seen, that there was a demand during the pandemic for the sanitizers, for the wipes, for masks, for gloves. And we've all seen the supply and the demand chain in the last 3 months through the grocery shopping that we've been doing or the online shopping, and where we are going with it. So not only that, you sell niche products or commodity products, you focus on the market, you focus on what the need is in the market, and you fulfill the need.
And for Mr. Marani, I'm going to intervene here. Miss Yvette Mashburn just asked, what are some of the trending products for 2020? And right now, number one is health and beauty products. And under that category, it contains everything from vitamins to PPE equipment, hand sanitizers, hair products, skincare products, as well as weight loss products. Additionally, hobbies and crafts rank high because people are now home. They want hobbies and crafts. Shapewear for women in particular rank extremely high. Smart watches, front-facing baby carriers. I thought this was interesting, but since COVID-19, the need for front-facing baby carriers has shot up because people are more active. They're outside now, which has created a demand. Breathable mesh running shoes, non-contact infrared thermometers, home repair tools, Wi-Fi repeaters, inflatable pet collars, strapless, backless bras, car phone accessories, home security cameras, as well as portable solar panels are all amongst the highest traded items right now from an online sales perspective. Now, as Mr. Marani said, I think it's something to always be said for people finding what they're passionate about. I do a lot of reading, and probably 2 decades ago, The Millionaire Mind and the Millionaire Next Door was written. And I believe the professor was from Georgia Tech or Georgia State. And at the time, it looked at American millionaires, and it was the most in-depth study that had been done at that time. And what you found is that the average millionaire was not the smartest kid in the room. They were actually a C student, considered to be by their peers mediocre at best. Honestly, according to data, not the most social person, but they were successful and became millionaires because they found what they loved. And that was a very resounding fact with building American wealth. When people do what they like, they tend to be successful at it because they don't see it as a job. It becomes more of a passion. So as you consider what it is you want to do in the online space, definitely consider what you enjoy, because your success is inherently linked to what you enjoy.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how I was successful doing what I did. So I think it's the success that I have received is through the products that I've sold. I've only selected products that I am passionate about. Just to give you an example, and I think we learned from live experience, and my live experience was when you go online to sell a product, and I don't know if you knew this, Commissioner, but you could actually go to ebay.com on eBay, and you could click on advanced search. You could put name of any product and just hit sold, and it will show you a trend of how many sold, when it's sold, and how much it's sold for. So you have these data available to you beforehand, before you could even go into investing into a product. So the data is out there, it's available to all of us, and we can do our research. And even if you're passionate, and if you want to know if passion can be converted into sales, go look at that and see in the last 30 days how many of these products have sold, and look at the stats. And if they are in the volume that it's been selling, then that is a product and it's been your passionate product. So I think those are the keys on minimizing the risk and creating more success in your stories and in your products.
And let me also, I think this is very important because I didn't see it covered on any of the slides for the presentation, but sourcing product, how to source product. Because for me, prior to starting my own online business, I had the fortune of working under the tutelage of a gentleman that owned an international company, and he sort of took me under his wing, so to speak. And I understood how to go about finding manufacturers of product. Once you determine what it is you like to do, and there's a question here from Miss Tony Jordan, what advice would you provide to start an online tutoring service? In particular, we'll visit that and answer that question. But as it relates particularly to product, sourcing good product is very important. For individuals who understand, many of you may be familiar with Alibaba. And Alibaba is second only to Amazon in terms of global sales. But it is used primarily by people who sell in an online space, or even if you have brick and mortar, you can find manufacturers globally of a variety of different products. You can customize those products. You can private label products. And I think that's important to understand too, the difference between private labeling and developing a raw product from the ground up. I will use, for instance, eyewear. There's many companies out there that sell eyewear, and you can find a design you like, Depending on the quantity, because that is going to be key when you're selling online, the larger quantity, the lower the cost. The less the quantity, the higher the cost per unit. Um, so please understand that. And this all becomes a part of your cost when you determine the cost of doing business. So for me, I may have a minimum of 1,000 units. And this is also something that keeps many people and from going into online for certain products, particularly high end, because I will just use an example for you here. If you produce a product and your cost per unit is $18, okay, but you have a minimum order quantity of 1,000, that just became $18,000 for one product. Okay. If you produce that item in multiple colors, black, tortoise, red, that's 3 different orders that you will generally place for that product. So you're going to take 3,000 units and that becomes $54,000 for one unit. Now learn how to negotiate as you work with individuals and manufacturers, because if you are new and right now, because what's happening in the marketplace, you may be able to negotiate 1,000 pieces with 2 different color structures, as opposed to 1,000 units that are all the same. And I hope that makes sense to those of you that are listening to me. A large part of this comes down to negotiations and understanding how to get the product you desire. Because at the end of the day, your product cost is going to weigh very heavily on your profits. So you want to keep that product cost as low as possible. Before ordering in quantity, I always suggest paying the sample fee. Generally, as a rule of thumb, the sample fee will cost you 5 to 10 times the cost of the product. But that's because in many instances, they want to see your commitment, because they don't want a person to show up and just buy one product, for instance, a luxury handbag, to check the quality, because in many instances, that person just wanted that one bag. So you're going to pay very dearly for the one unit, but you can always negotiate, what I've always done, to have that cost backed out of the cost of my first order. So keep those type things in mind. But, you know, I always caution, until you have felt, held, and seen a product, and always request a prototype. For me, a lot of the things that I've created have been original pieces. So before I pay for the order, I must have that prototype, because that's going to give me an idea of the quality. It allows me to correct anything that I do not like, because once you've made that investment, your money is gone, and now you have a product that you need to sell. So I'm going to sort of toss it back over to you, Mr. Marani, on that note. But sourcing of product is extremely important when it comes to online.
Yep, I would agree with that, because if you have good quality products, even when you pay the sample fee, you get to not only look at the product, but you get to test the quality of the product. And you know, when you're putting a product out there, you're putting your name with it, and you're putting your brand with it, and you're putting your reviews with it. Every product has a review to it, and you want to make sure that you're giving, you know, you have to put yourself into the consumer's shoes, because at the end of the day, you are a consumer yourself, and you have to ask yourself, are you going to be, if you were to receive this product in the mail, how would you react to it? And if you could put yourself into the buyer's shoes, I think you would produce the best product, and you would be more successful with the quality of the product.
Absolutely. And also private labeling, for those of you that are in the health and beauty space or have an interest. There are some key shows that take place throughout the United States, and you can go to those shows, you can find the product that you like, and literally you place your label on it. Now, and that becomes your product. One of the things that we didn't talk about is drop shipping and how that works, because for online space is very important, and it's a wonderful tool, because your product may be warehoused with a major supply house, And when that order comes in, all they do is pull it, package it in your packaging with your labels, and it goes out. So those are options as well for people who don't have the time to micromanage their product, but want to start an online store and have it managed by an outside entity and only concern themselves with the identification, the packaging, and the sale of the product, as opposed to the shipping and tracking. So that is also something that, Mr. Marani, I'd like for you to speak on, in terms of opportunities in drop shipping.
Yes, I think we have a slide that's coming up for that.
Okay.
Great.
And you let me know, are we there yet?
Yeah.
Yes, we're there. So that's a good lead in.
This is good. Yeah, perfect. So I guess people that are out there that don't know what drop shipping is. Drop shipping basically, in simple terms, would be you're not actually buying a product and storing it in your home or in your storage place. You're basically utilizing listings, and you're creating listings for products that could be available from a third-party vendor or a third-party seller. And to give you a good example, that let's say there's a product that's available on Amazon.com, and it's available from a seller, and you're listing that product on your own personal website.
Yes.
And let's say somebody clicked on your website and you've got that purchase. You could pass that order to the Amazon third-party seller and tell them to drop ship it for you. When they drop ship it, they will remove all their content, and they'll remove all their labels, through which the buyer who receives the product would never know it came from a seller on Amazon. It would feel like you sold the product and it went directly to them. In this, you have zero risk to investing into the product, storing the product, touching the product, packing the product. You have no labor cost involved. You have no product cost involved. And this has been a number one trending way where online sellers are multiplying their sales thousands and thousands of times. I have a seller that I've tracked on, who used to sell on the platforms that we'll go over later on. And one of the platforms that he sold to, he would have about 5 or 10 sales a day. Soon as he added drop shipping, he would have about 50 to 80 sales a day. And I asked, and there is no management in those, because you're just taking those orders and forwarding to them, and you're not actually handling the orders, through which his volume has gone amazingly high. His profit has been there, and without adding any labor cost to it. So it's an amazing thing. And this is something that, if you are already selling online, and if you're not using drop shipping, you are missing something really big out of the business. This is an amazing tool, and every seller online, beginners, intermediate, or advanced, everybody needs to be using drop shipping if they're not using currently at this point.
And let me say this, many people don't know, because sometimes you don't know until you know. When you're on Amazon, it will give you the option to sell this product. And you can create your own store from Amazon that sells only the products that you desire. You can drive traffic to your online store and your brand of which you create, and those products will be automatically shipped from, or lack of your manufacturer. Now, that is one of the easiest ways. And if you are able to drive traffic, because I do a lot of research, so oftentimes I'm able to find the same product sold under different names in 2 or 3 different stores, online stores. And the only thing that has happened is you became a retailer of that product. If you chose to private label it, it has your name on it. And you are selling that product. So that is a wonderful way to build an online business if there are certain products that you have an interest in selling.
And mostly the giant Amazon.com is where mostly drop shipping has been used. And the reason drop shipping was had seen more success rating at Amazon.com is due to the Prime membership and due to the Prime selling. Prime allows the products to be delivered to the consumer between 24 to 48 hours.
Mhm.
And a lot of sellers online had used Amazon.com for the drop ship due to the fact of the service. So, I love the Amazon business model and I utilize that model every day in my business. They concentrate on speed, they concentrate on service, and they concentrate on pricing. So if
Yeah.
you have a great price, you can deliver the products in a speedy way to your buyers. And if you can provide the service, then you would always have a retention and you always have you will be in business and you'll be successful in business.
Yes, and let me also say I'm watching questions as much as I can as they come in. And one person said, with drop shipping, how would returns be handled? Let me say that all of those things are generally negotiated with your drop shipper. I know personally because I have more high-end goods, I understand my product. My drop shippers don't, not to the extent that I do. So if there is, because I have set the rules and terms for product returns, so if you have an issue with a product, I have it so my product comes to me because I can immediately tell if my product was damaged by a consumer. Because, so those are all things that are for you to have the conversation. But definitely with your product store, you want to set terms and conditions for returns on the front end. Um, how do you obtain a business license if you have a drop shipping business when a brick and mortar address is required on the application? Um, Let me say that that can be somewhat tricky. As a matter of fact, I've had this conversation this week with one of our state representatives because if you lease, it requires the signature of a landlord to obtain a business license for that particular address. Okay. So we are now looking at that because many people operate online businesses within their home that are of no consequence or detriment to their neighbors. However, currently, if you operate a home-based business and you lease, you must have the signature of the landlord in order to officially operate that business and receive a business license in DeKalb County, Georgia. Um, let's see here. There was another question in particular, but there's so much to talk about here because we still haven't talked about the best platforms to use. And George will talk about those. And then once you have established your business, how to ensure that it remains safe. There's a person here that said they are interested in drop shipping handmade products. No problem whatsoever. Find a drop shipper. You will send your product, just as I send mine, directly to that warehouse. They will house that product, and as it is ordered in whatever packaging you have, it will go out. It's just that simple. Doesn't matter, if it's, a handmade product, etc. So that being said, I'm going to flip it back to you, Mr. Marani, and I'm not sure. I think, do we have another slide for your half of the presentation?
I think Allison will tell us, but I'd like to add something to something you just mentioned, which is important. So for the beginner online sellers that are selling online, I think as they see their sales are progressing, let's say you're selling 5 products a day, and as you see that you're converting that into a real business, at that time they can get an LLC and start forming an LLC and start getting the business license through the LLC using the LLC's name. Because at this point, if you're taking payments in for any online sale, you're taking it through PayPal. And PayPal provides you something called a 1099 at the end of the year through which you file in your taxes. So for people that are trying to sell online and they're beginning, as the sales are progressing and getting to a point where they feel that it's converting into a volume business, they need to form an LLC and through which they can apply for the business license.
Yes, and also let me say, I see someone, actually a dear friend, who had a question concerning drop shipping for perishable items. There are drop shippers that will accept perishables. What you have to do, I would say, honestly, start with a general Google search and it will give you a list. From there, interview them, determine whether or not you will meet their minimum requirements for shipping, and make a decision as to who you want to do business with based upon your model.
Great. Allison, we'll take the next slide if you. So, there are many online platforms, and I think this is just to kind of bring some of the big ones out there. Amazon would be the giant one, eBay, Shopify, Etsy, and there are many other platforms like Shopify, Bonanza, Jet, Newegg. But the three major ones out there, or four major ones out there, would be Amazon, eBay, it would be Etsy, and the big one, which a lot of people are not focusing on, I think it's Walmart.com. Walmart started their e-commerce and converted their online business about 5 or 6 years ago. And let me tell you one thing. Walmart is as big right now currently as Amazon is, because Walmart has the power of the brick and mortars that are already in place. And there are locations where they're getting products where it's so closer to your home that you can go to a Walmart store, order it online, and pick it up at a Walmart store. So they're shipping products between the stores, and Walmart has grown their sales tremendously and taken over the marketplace and taken a lot of major share on the online business from Amazon. So if you are not currently selling on Walmart.com, if when they started, they were only taking selective sellers. You had to get an invitation from them. But at this point, they're pretty much open to anybody that would like to sell. So if you are not registered to sell on Walmart.com, you are definitely missing out. You need to be part of that website. Your products will be visible by millions and millions and millions of people. I was reading an article one day and was amazed to say that Walmart actually, the number of stores that Walmart has and the number of employees that they actually employ, if they were to form a country, that would be the 24th country in the world. I mean, that's how the volume of Walmart is as power is concerned. So I feel like, and a lot of people actually forget that Walmart is out there. So I definitely think, and if your products are more handmade, I think Etsy is good. So look at what you're trying to sell and kind of, go to the marketplace that caters to that product or kind of perfectly fit into that. If your products are handmade products, you should definitely look at Etsy because that's one of the major marketplaces for handmade products. You could always keep your regular job and you could start online as a part-time selling. And if you feel the success is coming your way, you can convert it into a full-time. So you're not completely giving up your regular job. You need to start looking at bringing extra income. And this entire presentation is about if you have not started selling online, you need to start right away. If you haven't started, first thing you need to do tomorrow morning is start thinking, looking at these slides and kind of understanding where do I want to start and get into it. If you are already selling it, you need to explore which other marketplaces I could explore my horizon on. There are tools and resources out there which you could utilize that would allow you to create a listing on one place. And when you push it, it could go to 6 different marketplaces. So you really don't have to sit on 6 websites and start posting pictures and putting descriptions and creating listings. You could go post it at one place and it'll go 6 different places at one time. This way, you feel like I'm getting visibility. You need to be visible. The world is watching you. The online shoppers are watching you, and you're getting millions of views. Remember one thing, I always will tell this to people. If you're selling online, you are open 24/7. When
Yes.
you go to bed and you wake up, you would have 10 sales in the morning and you would be amazed, and your brick mortar doesn't have the lights are not even turned on in your brick and mortar and you have 10 sales. So this is something that you could generate and you can earn. You can at least generate $1,800 additional income from online business sales, even if you started as a part-time.
Absolutely. Let's see, what else do we have here? Many people are asking, how or what particular drop shipper should I use? And again, it depends on your product. I mean, personally, I don't place my product everywhere because it's a more high-end product. So for me, I can't do or would not choose to do the Walmart.com, which Walmart.com, in my opinion, and it's really interesting because, as you said, many people don't see Walmart as being on the same level as Amazon, but they very much they are in terms of product and quantity that they are able to sell. But you need to do the research in terms of finding the best drop shipper and or storefront online retailer to carry your particular products. Um, I think it's a very powerful point to say that, when you go to bed at night, you can wake up in the morning and check sales. And there's, once you have things in place, it's easy to do. So we're going to move to the next slide at this time. And we did list some of those: eBay, Amazon, Shopify, Etsy. And here, this was good. It goes from beginner to intermediate to advanced selling. And beginners sell 1 to 5, intermediate general average of 5 to 20, and advanced sellers generally sell anywhere from 21 to 100 items per day. And let's move to the next slide because we still have a lot of ground to cover, guys. Social media visibility and marketing. This is so important that honestly, this probably needed to be a 2-part town hall to do this justice if you really need help in these spaces. So, Mr. Marani, I'm going to let you move forward, but we're going to have to be mindful. We probably have only about 5 to 7 more minutes before we
So
need to move on.
we'll swift fast here. So I think the main thing here is to understand how social media needs to be utilized for each businesses and how social media has played in place right now for marketing and visibility. I mean, just take an example of, when we started, Facebook was number one, and now Instagram. I mean, people are using Instagram and it's driving traffic through Instagram to their brick and mortars. People are posting products, videos, they're getting likes. I had a friend who called me yesterday and said, you know what? I own a brick and mortar. I opened my doors and I was waiting for a customer to walk in, and somebody walked in and said, hey, I just found your store on Instagram. And it's amazing how free marketing from social media could bring you sales and business on, straight to your brick and mortar. So if you're not using any of these social medias, you need to kind of use them to your benefit, because Instagram has been one of the biggest platforms right now that has helped many businesses to stay open and to increase their sales and to generate more and more business and get more visibility. So online sales can completely change if you will utilize social media to your benefit.
And let me say, as it relates to influencers, that's one of the popular terms. Even local influencers, I know people that, wear my product and so forth. And just general post go a long way. So when people, utilize your product, ask them to visit your social media or to make posts and tag the product, and that will link back to you. I had even pulled, some data on online as it relates to social media and viral marketing. And roughly 45% of the world's population currently uses social media. And I pulled the top 10 individuals for product sales. And I was shocked to find that there is a Portuguese soccer player that has 406.6 million followers. He has 202 million followers on Instagram, 122 million on Facebook. His name is Cristiano Ronaldo, and he is the largest seller of product currently online, followed by Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, Katy Perry, Kim Kardashian, Beyonce, Felix Gelberg and Kylie Jenner. And let's go to the next page, Allison, because we've got to teach you how to start the store. We got to get to that point. Hi. Okay, the online. Okay, now, Mr. Marani, I'm going to let you talk about this particular slide.
So I guess the slide is more about, reviews and feedbacks and customer service with any business, as you know how important reviews and feedbacks are. And when you are selling the products, you want to be mindful of that when the customer receives the product, what would their first reaction would be. So when you're packing the products and you're shipping the products, you want to be careful. You want to test the product. You want to make sure it works. And this is for people that are just not trusting their manufacturers, and just putting the products into a box. If you have something, if you're selling a product, you want to make sure that that product does work before the buyer gets it. I had a friend who owns a business called the onlinefinancialschool.com. And it was so amazing that, he started the school, and I was just talking to him last week, and I said, what do you do? I mean, and he says, I have a school online, and I teach people how to manage their finances and how to invest their money into different places, on how to create more revenues for themselves. And he actually provides a subscription service to the consumers, and each classes are $49.99. And I was amazed to find out that he's done $100,000 of online sales in the last 12 months just through this online school. And he says COVID-19 and pandemic, people have actually registered for the full entire course and taken the subscription. So COVID-19 has made online sales increase hundreds of folds here, through product selling, through services. And I think we have a proven history. Before COVID, the sales were great. I mean, during COVID, the sales are like really great, amazing. And this is going to be the future. So if you want to be successful, I always tell people that look at where the market is trending and learn to adapt and change yourself rather than just being in one static position. Look what's going on in the market. When you wake up in the morning, look, read, review, see what's going on, trend according to the market. If you see a company that's succeeding, try to be part of that success because they're doing something correct. They're bringing the traffic. And rather than just kind of going into it so late, you could be part of it early. So when that company becomes blossoms, you'll be part of that blossom. So my point at the end with the discussion here would be, if you are not selling online, you should be starting to sell at least a product online. If you are already selling, you need to start tapping into other marketplaces that you did not know about or you haven't researched about. And the last thing I would tell somebody is, if you're not using drop shipping, you need to be using drop shipping. And if you can think of any services that you're currently providing and they're not offered online, you need to be providing those services online, because you don't know what the future holds, and things that service could be so much in need, and you could find that clientele online. So I would just recommend everybody to please focus on the market and be part of that $1 trillion market in 2024 and be part of that success.
Yes, and without delay, let's move into the next presentation. Mr. Shealy, I would ask that you come off of mute at this time. I know you're a busy man. I've worked with you a lot over the years. And okay, so you're now off mute. So Allison, if we can move into this next part of the presentation. I've seen the questions come in as to, should I advertise on Google? Should I advertise through Facebook? How do I do this? So what we're now about to talk about is that side of the aisle. And one of the things that I have found most interesting in terms of, and George, you taught me this as you've helped me grow brands, is utilizing your competitors to sell your products. You need to understand the full market and landscape for whatever it is you sell. And those are things that should always be in your back end. Now, what do I mean by that? That means, and I use what's dear to me, what I understand. If you sell eyewear, if you feel that you have a product that is comparable to Tom Ford, Gucci, Chanel, Prada, or any of those brands, then tagging your product accordingly will over time begin to generate product views. So George, let's talk about Mr. Shealy. Let's talk about Google Analytics, search engine optimization, and on and off page optimization. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, and we're going to keep going.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you're there.
How's everybody doing? One of the things, that I've learned over the years is that is that convenience is king. One of the things that has happened, we've seen happen, because of COVID, we could not go to the stores. We could not, go to the grocery stores or at first because everything was sold out. But then we had a shortage of face masks, sanitizer, all those things because people bought them up, and everybody was searching online. And one of the biggest things that we seen grow was online sales. I mean, at my house, I probably got to bust down about 20 boxes right now that I've gotten over the past week or so. That's just because of online sales. And one of the biggest things that people have to start with, you have to first get your website, build your website. And that website needs to be professional, clean, and easy to use. And one of the things that people don't understand is that when you first log on, your website is it's the first representation of your business. So that's why it's important that you have a clean website and easy to use, and it loads very, very quickly. And with me, started working at AT&T back in 2004, building websites, selling online advertising. And one of the things I saw was the need for a website. I saw how the website was very, very bland. And then you had to scroll through a lot of verbiage to get to what exactly you was looking for. But because of the powerhouse like Google, I've discovered that Google has made it very, very easy for us to find products. And
George, I'd like to say one of the things that, we talk about when we talk about products is what we call core differentiators. What is it that makes your product stand out? Also, in terms of the development of a website, one of the most important elements is professional photography as well, if you have a unique product. I know personally, I've dealt with several product photographers.
yes,
I have my own experience there with, hiring someone because, I knew them and I wanted to get a certain, shall I say, result. But you need to make sure that when you go out there and you hire people, you should really Google and research product photography because it is an art. And in order, depending on the nature of your product, if you sell high-end, image is everything. I know photographers who shoot exclusively for Nordstrom,
yes,
Ferrari, all different types of companies, and they specialize in what they do. And that look that you get in terms of if you have a product that needs to be shot from 3 different angles, when people view your website, you need that consistency. And don't undervalue the importance of creative, because when it comes to online marketing and product stores, image is truly everything. One of the things too, George, that I wanted to talk about when we talk about Google Analytics, Google Analytics is literally free and it gives you the tools to better understand your consumers. And it also helps you understand the return on your investment. Also, your analytics will tell you the age, the income, the amount of page views, the traffic that you're receiving,
yes,
as well as the average length of time that people are on your website. And these are all things and reports, George, that, you pull and send over, because I just like tracking things, whether it's for the county or my private entities that I have. So let's talk a little bit about analytics and how important it is for online stores to understand what they see and to use that data to help drive sales.
Yes, one of the things with websites, once you build your website, you want to make sure you attach to Google Analytics. And like she said, it's free. You can simply just Google Analytics, and it will walk you through the process. This is after you build your website. And one of the things that the analytics tells us, like she said, it tells you, how you're being found. It tells you what pages they're looking for. And to piggyback off the pictures and presentation that she talked about, one of the biggest things it tells you, it gives you a bounce rate. Bounce rate is just simply when somebody goes to your website and it rates them how long they stay on versus how long they bounce off. So if your bounce rate is high, you don't have good content, or your website is not a good representation for the product or service that they were searching for. So that's why it's good and it's key to make sure you have good content, professional pictures, so you can give yourself a chance, because it's very, very competitive out there. So you're not the first one that's probably selling your particular product, but one thing you want to do is give your product a competitive edge. But Google Analytics will let you know everything.
Yeah, I want to also add, as it relates to even the verbiage, there is an art to the creation of content. What needs to be said, brevity is always important, because people don't want to read much. They just want to know the facts. And that's very important. Now, one other thing, search engine optimization, when we see that, SEO is the acronym most people see. I wanted to read to folks because I want them to understand what these terms mean. And search engine optimization is the process of maximizing the number of visitors to a particular website by ensuring that the site appears high on the list of results returned by a search engine. Now, there are a lot of companies out there that will say to you, oh, we're going to get you up. Because everybody wants to be on that page one when a Google search is done. But there are things that you can do that won't cost you a great deal of money. And that's where the keywords and phrases come in. And I remember, you deal with good web developers and people that specialize in what George does. I remember, when we've had conversations about things, your team will immediately send to me, depending on the product, a list that needs to be in the back end to help increase that ranking. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, it's a simple as tagging, your products, your photos. I remember when Facebook started, when you would upload a picture, it would ask you for the description, the alt tag, which is a text, and just information about that picture. And, as I, grew in the business, I began to learn how important that is. That's basically what SEO is. Even though your picture is shown, but it's information behind that picture that helps your picture, your product, your service to be found. And it's one thing it's just like a kite. You can build a nice professional website, but just like a kite without a string, it's floating around in the air. But when you attach, SEO is that string. So when you attach SEO to it, and somebody goes out and they search for a particular product or service, Google wants the best sites, the best representation. They want the best information about that search for that client. So they want their clients to have a good user experience. So they pull up the top 10 websites that best represent that product or the service, or whatever it is that they're searching for. So that's why search engine optimization is important. You got your on-page optimization, that's all the information about your websites, and then you got your off-page, that's your links, your social media, your backlinks, your social media, your newsletters, your blogs, all that, everything that you attach your website to, or your website, or what is attached to your website.
And let me also say that, you know, many of you on here, you have shopped for a product. You are then just sitting there and you may be checking email, and up in that corner pops the product and or a comparable product.
Mm-hmm.
There is an art to online sales. So all of those things, when you're talking on and off page optimization, or you might shut down the computer completely. You made no purchase, but because you had gone to that website, they use that data and analytics and they come back to you. So for me, selling certain products, if you're looking for a certain type product, then I want to pop up so that you know, hey, I'm out here too. You may not be familiar with my brand. So Allison, let's go to the next slide, because this is probably one of the most critical. All of this stuff is very important. But, you know, George, I wanted you to speak. Let's go ahead. Let's go to the next slide, because we did cover Google Analytics, because I didn't see this part of the presentation. Go ahead and go to our next, and we don't have time to show this video. This was a video that will walk you through how to set up analytics on your individual website. Keep going. We talked about SEO. I'm wanting to get to WordPress, Shopify, and Wix. So let's keep going once again. This. Okay, George, let's have this conversation, because when you develop an online website, there are different options out there in terms of sales, but you have to be careful what you choose depending on the product and your need. Let's break down WordPress, Shopify, and Wix and the differences so that people understand.
Okay, one of the things I like to use, one of the platforms that I like to use is WordPress. WordPress has so many templates and plugins and that you need to, you know, help your website to be found. Whether you have your shipping plugin that's integrated with the U.S. Postal Service or FedEx or whatever that you can add into your website. It has so many things available for you that's free. And once you build your website on WordPress, you may have to pay minimum cost to update the plugins, or your hosting company might provide that service for you. Shopify it's a good platform for people, but one thing I know about Shopify, they not only charge you annually and monthly, but they also charge you for each time that you make a purchase. So they get a percentage of each purchase that you make, that a customer makes from you. And so in Wix is one of the easiest things that you can use to build your own website if you need to build a website right away. Wix is good, but once you purchase your domain from Wix and you pay the annual fee, you cannot move that domain over from Wix. It's stuck with Wix. And so, but also if you want to, you know, if you want to SEO want me to come along and SEO your Wix website, I can't provide SEO services or most of my services for it, because, you know, Wix is a very, very hard website for me to optimize. But
and let me say this, let me add something here, because I never like to see people make a poor decision. Mm-hmm. I would go so far as to say, when it comes to Wix and other platforms, go to GoDaddy.com and purchase your website, or HostGator, or an independent platform, because they will give you your domain, because they will give you the option and they'll say, oh, your domain is free with your 1-year subscription. But what happens is they own the domain and not you. So if you decide at some point, I don't want to do business with you, I don't like how you do business with me, then you go, but they own the rights to your domain, so you can never function again independent of them on the domain that you've spent your hard-earned time and money creating. So please be cautious with that. Purchase your domain from an independent source, So that if you decide I don't want to do business with you, I own my domain. I also caution you, unless you really know the web developers that you deal with intricately, because I've seen too many people caught in that as well. A domain, as a general rule, is $12 annually, okay? But I do urge people, if you have a product, you register, I'll just say, wow, whatever the name is, .com, register the .net as well, and I generally register the .org. That way, no one else can operate online using any name that I have, because the .infos and .tvs aren't they're not going to be as important and relevant. So definitely make sure you lock down your name so that you are the only person that's out there operating under that name. Buy it from an independent source. And if you use a web developer, then once they have done their work, you go in and you change your passcodes so no one can hijack your domain and hold you victim to high fees. Because I've seen that has changed a lot in the past decade, but early on when the internet was just becoming the thing in the marketplace, I've seen a lot of people go through a lot of grief with people who were unscrupulous and prevented them from doing business. So all of that is good information, George. Anything else you want to add to this particular slide?
And normally when you go to the independent sources like GoDaddy and HostGator to buy your domain, go ahead and pay for the 5 or 10 year because you get a huge discount. Because I've seen people forget to renew their domain and somebody come along and buy it and try to resell it to them, for $500 or $1,000. And you don't know how your business might take off. So you definitely want to make sure you secure the domain. So if they're charging you $79 for 10 years, go ahead and pay that. At least you don't have to worry about, because we know these years fly by so fast. And when you get busy, you sometimes forget to renew if you don't have it on auto renew. But you get a huge savings when you buy you pay multi years.
And it can be a nightmare if you lose your domain. I've seen that before. And then wholesalers may purchase the domain and charge you hellacious fees for something that should have been at a minimal cost.
Yes.
So let's go to the next slide, Allison, and talk very briefly so that now because we got to tell you once you get the website how to keep it safe in terms of brand identity. And I think this is a great slide because, you see the Starbucks symbol there. And I remember the founder of Starbucks, when he sought business loans and he wanted to start Starbucks, I remember bank after bank rejected him and said, nobody's going to pay $3 and $5 a cup for coffee. But he did not give up. And now it is one of the most recognized brands across the globe. Same thing with Mac and, Steve Jobs. And I remember teaching about his campaign because his very first campaign said, think differently. Because at the time he entered the computer space, it wasn't sexy or in vogue. It was something that nerds had for the most part. But he decided we've got to make this sexy. We want people to want this machine. We have to create it with a feel so that people begin to think differently. In his first campaign, if you've never seen it, it's a great joy, but I take delight in this kind of stuff. Used legends like Amelia Earhart, Einstein, people who shattered beliefs and did notable things to create brands. And, when it comes to brand identity, this is another whole seminar defining who you are, create a clear message, be consistent. Those are all important. And George, Mr. Shealy, do you have anything to add to this one?
Yeah, one of the things, which Starbucks has done, they made their logo and their brand recognizable. And I ain't a victim. Every time I pass by Starbucks, I don't care if I've already had, a cup of coffee or two, I pull over and then I get me a cup of coffee from Starbucks. But one thing, when you get in Starbucks, you see all the other items and other things that they sell. and it's become habit. It's like when you pass by, it's a must that you stop and you get your Starbucks. So one of the things they did, when you starting your business, you got to make sure you design a very, very clean logo that represents your business or your brand. Then you put it out there. You let people know that you exist, through your social media, through your SEO, through remarketing. Then you want to make sure you create a clear message as to what your product or your service is. What we do, who we are, and thirdly, you want to be consistent. You want to just bug them through, like remarketing. Like she said earlier, I purchased a shirt from Saks last week, and it was expensive. It was fairly expensive, but I was Googling and I saw that same shirt from the vendor for $150 cheaper. So I quickly ordered it through, and I took that shirt right back to Saks. I tried to get an opportunity to match the price. They wouldn't match the price, so I returned it. But one of the things with remarketing, you can leave a website, like she said. You can go to your Facebook, your Instagram, even your email, and you see that same vendor or that product or that service pops up, and it might have it at a lesser price, or it might have a competitor that's selling it for a lesser price. If you didn't buy it before and you wanted it almost forces you to buy it then. So that's one thing good about remarketing. You want to, and you can. It's very inexpensive to do that through Facebook or even Instagram. And Facebook and Instagram are the same company, so there are ways to be consistent and brand your brand. It's one thing to post, but you can also purchase the boost, and you can boost it and you can target your demographics. Because I was doing my research earlier, and I researched the top 5 search engines. The number 1 search engine, of course, is Google. The second search engine is YouTube, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. The third is Amazon, because Amazon has done a great job. If you're looking for products, you can see, you do a search, you see the product over to the side, and Amazon is promoting that product. Of course, the 4th is Facebook, and the 5th is Bing. But you have the ability to do a lot of these things on your own. So don't just post your product or your service. Go ahead and pay the $10 or $30 or $40 or whatever it costs to boost your product, because you can target your demographics based on your age, city, race, or whatever. It gives you that ability to do it, and you can if you want to target 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 people, it gives you that ability.
And as well as income too, because certain product, if you sell a more high end, then you expect a certain income. And I think now I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to go 15 minutes over, and we can go ahead and go to the next slide. But I think that closes out for the most part, Mr. Shealy, your presentation. And now we're going to hop right in. Now, once you've taken the time I
had to get my glasses, and everybody loved my Louise Lorraine.
That's funny. But Mr. Vaughn, we're going to go right into your presentation, because along with the business, and let me also say something, Mr. Shealy, that's really, really important, is this is a lot of information. But one thing I've found is, if you want to be successful, you need to know what you don't know.
Yes.
Don't just trust other people, because that can often lead to ruin. You have to read and understand and be logical about what it is you're doing. So this kind of, to me, is a crash course of what I would teach a student in a whole semester. But once you have that website online, cybersecurity becomes important. So, Mr. Vaughn, I'm going to allow you at this time. Let's go ahead and go to the next page, and we can begin the conversation. We're going to dive right in. on once you've created this investment, how do you keep it safe?
All right. Thank you again, Commissioner. And it's a privilege to be on with Mr. Shealy and Mr. Marani. And I thank you. And, you know, one thing I want to just talk about real quick, the cybersecurity landscape. You know, 80% of businesses have experienced a cybersecurity incident. And, you know, that includes, you know, whether it's internal, someone may have, you know, hacked internally, actual employee, or it could be an external hack. You also have 72% of consumers have had their data stolen. If you use Equifax, that's pretty much almost everybody in you know, America right now. So it's, you know, everyone has at some point had their data stolen or compromised. So it's important that, you know, cybersecurity is a key part of your conversation when you're thinking about how to protect yourself online, and definitely keeping your business, which is your livelihood, safe. So if we can go to the next slide. First, you know, I want to talk a little bit about something that, you know, we all know, but we hope no one else knows, and that's your password. And, you know, I put in here first, you know, password 123, which hopefully no one has that as their password. But let's talk a little bit about password protection, because that's the first thing that everyone can do to protect their business, whether it's their web portal, whether it's their e-commerce site, their Amazon, all these things. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about passwords and how you can make sure that you have the correct password. So with password protection, you know, many people try tactics such as like replace the A's with the @ symbol, simple things like that. And, you know, remember, passwords are your first line of defense in protecting your computer. And, you know, you definitely need to have a good password. So if we keep, you know, moving forward here with the slide, it does have some animation, but if you just click through, remember, strong passwords make it more difficult. So if you have a strong password, it's going to be a lot more difficult for someone to just, you know, log in. You know, we often hear about people getting their Amazon account hacked where, you know, they ordered things on it, you know, simply because they were using a password like, hey, my, you know, son's name and the year he was born, which is easy to find online. So let's continue on and talk about what you can do to make sure you have a strong password. Because if you take a look here in this particular sheet I have, is how long it will take to crack your password. Again, if you do a mix of lowercase and uppercase, you want to be around in that yellow or green, really the 1 year, 16 years. So think about like your password. You know, one thing that I always tell people what you can do is you can do, you know, say 11 plus 11 equals 22. So you can actually write out 11, or you can say 11 plus 12 and write out those actual words, 11 and plus 12 equals, and then the number 23. So there's different ways that you can make strong passwords that are easy to remember but hard to guess, because most hackers are using password crackers to actually just, you know, go against your account to see if they can easily get your password. So if you have a strong password, that will save your business a lot of trouble in the long run.
And let me say, Mr. Vaughn, you know, one thing that I've found, because I've even had my business account hacked, and I just couldn't believe that. They went in and took my money. And, you know, it's one thing for you to establish credit in someone's name, but to take their money was just, I was just a little shocked by that. But using special characters helps tremendously, because the last thing anyone on this call wants to find out after you have taken your time, you're operating your business, is one of the most devastating blows you can receive, is to wake up and realize that your back end has been hacked, and it can be costly to resolve. So do it right on the front end. And I'm just going to yield to you, but I had to share that experience because I felt so violated and just confused. You know, when certain things happen, you're like, how on earth did you manage to do this to me?
Right. And so let's go to the next slide and just wrap this up on the password. So creating a strong password, just as you said, Commissioner, it looks like a random collection of characters, a strong password. There's no repeating characters like the 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's like that padlock. It will protect you in the long run. And, patterns and themes and words and different things like that, you want to avoid that because, again, there are programs that run that use thousands of different password combinations. And usually if they're targeting someone who is high end, they will go out and look at your media, look at things that are about you and try to guess what that password is. So a strong password is very important. So let's move on. Let's get into now. Let's talk about, we have a strong password. Now let's talk about online security. We just keep moving past here. Ransomware is the malware that threatens your business. With my company, that's our goal, is to protect you from that. But the main thing to know about ransomware is it's the threat to publish the business data or block access to it. So if you have a company and you're doing online sales and you're collecting a lot of your customer data, they can collect that data, credit card information, and block your access to it and threaten to publish it. So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. And again, the first step is a strong password. It's not a firewall. It's not whether or not you have good virus protection. It's that strong password that will save you. So let's go to the next slide. And again,
Mr. Vaughn, I'm sorry, I was on mute and talking.
Okay.
But also, let me say to those that are on the call, one thing you said, because it's one thing for you to feel compromised, but it's a totally different thing, and we've seen that on national levels, where JCPenney and other stores have that, their data and clients and customer information has been compromised.
Right.
And if you are selling online, that's the one thing you never want to have to write a client or your customer and say that, because it's almost like saying, I didn't do something I should have. Is to say your information has been compromised, because then it takes you into a different realm where you may need to provide for those clients to be right with them, credit monitoring and other things. So we didn't have the opportunity tonight to talk about insurances, but that's very important too. And, for the most part, you can reach out to, I don't care who your insurance provider is, Geico, State Farm, Progressive, most all of them carry some form of business insurance that even if you have a home-based business, they will insure your product and give you a certain guarantee against your products and goods that you're selling. That had been a question earlier, so I'm gonna let you hop right back into it.
All right, and we'll go through this real quick. Everyone knows about the city government of Atlanta, and this is where we'll talk about being proactive, because they spent over $5 million after a hack to get, back right, take care of things. And, just as far as back as 2010, and we know this number has increased, 71% attacks are on small businesses, because they know that they are either going to have to pay the ransom to get that data back, or they are going to either even be shut down totally by a ransomware attack. So we definitely want to focus on your small business and making sure that you're protected online. So let's go ahead and continue on. And we'll talk a little about, let's talk about protecting your online business. So this kind of goes back to some of the things we talked about earlier. There's different types of e-commerce, your business to consumer, consumer to consumer, different spaces. There's different platforms that you use. So you definitely want to use a trusted e-commerce platform. You want to use something that, has been recommended to you by one of the experts here on the panel. And definitely you want to make sure that it's something that has all the features that you need, such as HTTPS, which is a security based website, and also making sure that it's PCI compliant, that's when you're taking credit cards and things like that, because that will protect you. And a lot of those trusted e-commerce platforms have that already built in. So you definitely want to start off with a trusted platform when you start your online business. All right, let's go to the next site, next page. And, does your business need a website maintenance? Now, again, you've got your website up, it's running, you're doing business. The one thing you want to do is keep your site updated, because you're the one who's responsible for protecting that customer data and all the visitor information that is out there. I mean, there's, things, if you collect certain data, you are responsible if that gets hacked and it gets sold, or someone loses their monetary means because of a hack from your site. So being proactive on your site will help you, quite a bit. So make sure that you maintain a good backup of your website, whether it's an offline backup, and then you update your software. So as updates come out, whether you're using an independent like Ecommerce or you're using a platform with everything built in, make sure you do your updates online as well as your local computer. Your local computer updates are important as well, because there are vulnerabilities that can allow someone to have access to your online website as well. All right, let's move on. So again, we talked about strong passwords for accounts, so we won't spend a lot of time on this, but one thing you want to make sure, and again, when you have a trusted e-commerce site, a lot of this stuff is already built in. So, and these are the actual accounts that your customers, so if say you have an online school and you want people to come to that school, or you have another online business where people are creating accounts that they use to log on, you want to have them to have strong passwords as well. You want them to have expiration policies on the passwords, and then also disallow like password reuse. So these are settings that you can set on your site when you have people use accounts to do online business with you, whether it's a webinar or things where you charge for them to create an account and get services, because them having an account that is compromised can also lead to a compromise within your account as well. All right, we can move to the next site, next page. So, one other thing to notice as you're selling a lot, things are going well, you want to keep an eye out for the signs of fraud. So, it's exciting. You see a big order come in that somebody just requested 100 units. I mean, that could be what's considered clean fraud, where someone had a stolen credit card. So that's where you want to make sure that everything that they do is confirmed. You're not wanting to just, okay, you need to confirm the address matches the credit card, things like that. Because what happens if you make that big sale, that the person who had the stolen credit card will come back and request a refund. You also have the chargeback fraud. That's where you have a faulty return, where someone orders something and they say, I never received it. They demand a refund, so you want to keep an eye out on those happening quite a bit. And then also, one big thing is where they do merchant identity fraud. And that's where someone takes your site, creates a bogus site that looks just like yours, and drives traffic to that site. So you want to always kind of monitor what's going on with your domain name, because if someone does that, they can then collect data from your customers, get credit card information, and that could lead to your business having a bad name because they think, hey, I went there and my information was compromised. So, and I gave some tips here. Limit the number of declined transactions you'll run for a customer, so people aren't constantly trying to hit against your site. And then consider not accepting cards from like certain locations. Like if someone's overseas and you're not sure, be sure you can verify whether or not where that transaction is coming from. All right, let's move to the next page. So let's talk about, you've done everything. You had a good password, something just didn't go right. What if your e-commerce site is hacked? Well, of course, if you have a trusted e-commerce provider, you contact them, because they do have some built-in things to protect you with that. And then if you also have a website separate from your e-commerce site, make sure you have a recent backup, because most likely your site is compromised, you'll need to restore that to your domain. And then this is the part that was mentioned earlier. You will have to inform your customers if you suspect consumer data was stolen. But the one way to protect yourself on that is to try to avoid storing customer data. So if you take customer data for a transaction, only store it for maybe the time that is needed to complete that transaction, then purge it. Because then that will prevent you from getting those class action lawsuits from hundreds of people who now want you to pay for, credit monitoring and other things like that. So if you can prove that, hey, we only stored that data for this time, so we only had X amount of people that could have been compromised, that's definitely important. And then, purchase cyber insurance. So the larger you get, especially if you outgrow, say you get big, you outgrow Amazon, you go beyond that, you have all this within your own company. Cyber insurance is important because that will get you back up and running. It'll pay those costs to have, cyber experts come in, find out what happened, get things back up without you having to foot that bill. And a lot of times, depending on what type of online business, it may be required for you to have cyber insurance. So something that you want to think about. And then if you have your business has grown, train your staff to protect company data. Make sure that they are diligent about the data, the password uses, everything that you are, diligent about. Make sure you pass that on to anyone who's working with you, whether that's a vendor, another company that works with you directly. Make sure you do that. And, finally, establish a relationship with a cybersecurity expert. It's just like, everyone needs someone, that you can call and just ask a question, or you can go to a site, you can follow, and you can kind of keep up to date. If you're out on Instagram, you can, search for things and you can get that in your feed about the latest in online consumer and cybersecurity. So, those are, like I say, it was a lot at one time, but at the same time, it's something that you can do today. And that is make sure you have that strong password on all of the accounts that you have related to your business as well as your personal accounts. That will go a long way with protecting you. And then from there, start to build security in as a framework as you build your business.
And I think that's great because this brings us to a close. But, I see a note here, should I hire an IT tech person? It all depends. But one thing that I will say is that, and I don't want anyone to have an adverse experience. I've found the cost of doing things right is far less than doing them wrong and then having or being placed in a position where you now have to correct the situation. So if you don't know someone who can assist you with the things that you don't know, we've really gone over the major platforms, how to be careful, when you purchase your domain, ensuring that you own that domain. Most places that say with 1 year hosting, I will give you a free domain. Be cautious. A domain is only $12. They're really not giving you much, but what happens is they are going to own that domain and not you. So all of these things are just important understanding. I know I have general maintenance on my website. And one thing that I found, every now and then something will go and I'll get a call from a client saying, oh, we couldn't bring up the site. And I'm like, what's wrong with the site? Because the site's paid for each month. But over time, and George, I know you're muted, but websites just plain and simply require tune-ups. It can also be as a result of traffic. So I have had to move to different servers or increase bandwidth and capability. And I had no idea what was going on. So immediately, I reach out to, people that I trust and I say, hey, I need you to go take a look at this. There's something wrong, or the site is down, or the site is moving very slow. And, it's affecting sales, or I've gotten a call. So, even if you're not paying a monthly fee, something nominal where just on a quarterly basis, that person who understands what needs to be done goes in, and it's not going to break you, but it can certainly make you. So definitely make sure you hire or you have wise counsel. And of course, as always, I'm here. There's been a lot of questions. We always do our best, God's willing, to try to go back through the questions, because Allison will download those. Anything that we didn't answer, I'll do my best to respond to those things. And you can always visit my website. Most of you here, I would assume you probably receive our newsletter. But for me, economic development is an equalizer. It's just like education. It levels the playing field. And, I want to share with you, because I feel that, as elected officials, we probably, in many instances, not done the best job of giving you resources to help you help us and help community. I've seen questions here about financing businesses. That's a whole different conversation, but I have the knowledge. So, maybe I need to do a separate discussion on that as well, because the county is rich in resources. We have everything from ACE loans that go up to $250,000 from 1 to 3% interest, to 108 revolving loans that you could borrow up to $30 million. Again, with no more than a 1 to 3% interest. Right now, for those of you who may be in business, if you're receiving my newsletter, you're aware of this. About a week and a half ago, we had CARES Act funding that became available. And you can receive up to $40,000 as a small business. Now, there are some requirements in terms of the length of time you've been in business. You must have a business license, so forth and so on, but it is a hybrid loan. What does that mean? A hybrid loan means that for a certain period of time, you will pay back, but at a 1% interest rate is what you would pay. And after that, you can petition to have the balance of the loan totally forgiven. And there's nothing like free money. So, helping you all make wise decisions by telling you about resources that are out there and opportunity, because success is when preparation meets opportunity. This may not come into play for many of you today, but maybe there's something that's been said here today that may benefit you at some point. So again, to my panel members, you all are my friends. You all are people that I know, people that I trust, people that I've worked with, and people that I know understand this space. So again, I want to thank everyone. We're not going to go into any further questions because we've gone over quite substantially on your time, and we value your time and we value you. You can visit my website because we will upload this presentation. My website is Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson.com. Again, that's Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson.com. And you will find this presentation and also this video as well. So George, Mr. Shealy, we've had a conversation about you monetizing and creating an entire little video library of, seminars, because knowledge is a very powerful thing. And I often say, be careful with whom one associates, because people can't tell you what they don't know. And I want us, in District 7 and the people of DeKalb, it's time we have meaningful conversations. Yes. And we share knowledge in a way that we have not done. So to all of you, may God continue to bless you, keep his hand upon you and your family. We remain in the midst of a global pandemic as we face unprecedented social unrest. But let us all learn to work together because knowledge is a very powerful thing. So at this time, I'm going to ask you, Allison, to take us away from the live feed, and we'll continue to go through. I'll sit here for a while longer and go through some of the questions that are here in the chat room. And, if you will do what you always do, download it and send it over, we will continue to respond. And again, thank you all so much. I love each and every one of you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.